Welcome to our deep dive, where we're going to be exploring some surprisingly practical advice on finding happiness at work from the Dalai Lama.
From the Dalai Lama.
Yes. And we're going to be using excerpts that you provided from The Art of Happiness at Work,
Okay.
which he co-wrote with psychiatrist Howard Cutler.
Interesting.
So we're going to unearth some actionable insights you can apply to your own work life.
I'm intrigued, I have to say.
So Cutler kicks things off with a story.
Okay.
He asked the Dalai Lama about people whose lives were transformed by their first book together, The Art of Happiness.
Okay.
But ironically, Cutler himself struggled to apply its principles to his own stressful work life.
Oh, the irony.
So the Dalai Lama recognizes the complexities of finding happiness at work
Right.
and stresses this human factor, how positive relationships with colleagues, supervisors, even clients impact our overall satisfaction.
So it's not just the work itself.
No, it's not just the work itself.
It's the people.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's not just a theoretical concept either.
Oh.
Cutler shares an anecdote about Tibetan factory workers in Switzerland
Okay.
who fostered friendships with their Swiss colleagues despite not speaking the same language,
Wow.
simply through smiles and helpfulness.
And that made a difference.
Yes, it had a ripple effect, creating a more positive work environment.
Wow. So simple acts of kindness can have such an impact.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Cutler also recounts a supermarket cashier named Dorothy,
Right.
whose cheerful demeanor brightened everyone's day.
It's amazing how small gestures can make a big difference.
It is.
Okay.
So let's shift our focus to money.
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room.
The Dalai Lama recognizes it's necessary for basic needs and its potential for positive impact.
Of course.
However, he cautions against making wealth the ultimate goal
That makes sense.
because it can lead to a relentless cycle of desire and discontent.
I can see that.
He even refers to his wealthy friends who constantly chase money as slaves to money.
Oh, well.
He believes true wealth lies in inner values, like compassion and contentment,
Inner values.
qualities that are not reliant on external factors.
That's a good point.
So let's tackle a different kind of workplace struggle.
Okay.
Boredom
Oh, yeah.
and lack of challenge.
Definitely an issue.
I have a friend, a marketing consultant, who finds her job so unchallenging
Oh, no.
that she makes paperclip sculptures
Really?
just to stay engaged.
Wow.
The Dalai Lama offers a different perspective,
Okay.
drawing from his experience preparing to teach complex Buddhist scriptures
I can imagine that's challenging.
to thousands of monks.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
So instead of shying away from challenges, he actively seeks them out.
Interesting. So he embraces challenge.
He views challenges as catalysts for personal growth
Okay.
and essential for maintaining well-being.
Makes sense.
Cutler introduces the concept of flow,
Flow.
a state of complete absorption and focus,
Right.
often associated with happiness at work.
So you get so engrossed in what you're doing
You lose track of time.
that you lose track of time.
Exactly.
That's cool.
The Dalai Lama also experiences it during moments of fear,
Fear.
which seems counterintuitive,
Yeah, that doesn't sound very happy.
but he explains that in high-pressure situations, your focus becomes so laser-sharp
Uh-huh.
that distractions vanish.
Okay.
It's this involuntary state of total absorption.
Interesting.
It highlights that flow isn't dependent on the nature of the task, but on our mental state and level of engagement.
So it's about finding that focus regardless of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
The Dalai Lama suggests shifting our perspective from viewing work as a mere job or even a career to something more akin to a calling.
A calling, huh?
Yes.
How can one find that sense of calling in, say, a repetitive factory job?
He uses that very example.
Does he really?
An assembly line worker might find purpose
By
reframing their work as a means to provide for loved ones.
So finding meaning in the impact it has.
Yes, that simple shift in perspective transforms a mundane task into an act of love and responsibility.
I like that.
Cutler himself experienced this transformation.
Really?
He reframed his attitude towards a boring summer job
How?
by focusing on his positive influence on a coworker.
That's great.
It's about connecting to a higher purpose,
Okay.
even in the simplest of tasks.
That makes a lot of sense.
This leads us to the importance of self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Understanding our strengths and weaknesses is crucial for finding a path that aligns with our abilities and values.
I could see that.
When asked about his own strengths,
Yeah.
the Dalai Lama had difficulty defining them.
He did.
He eventually acknowledged his talent for synthesizing and contextualizing information from Buddhist texts,
That's quite a skill.
a skill deeply intertwined with his life's purpose.
So it seems his self-awareness is so ingrained
Yes.
that there's no separation between his work and his identity.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Cutler shares another story about Toby, an accountant,
An accountant, okay.
who felt creatively stifled in his job.
I've been there.
He started incorporating his passion for graphic design
Into his accounting.
into his accounting reports.
Oh.
So Toby proactively found a way to weave his personal interests into his professional life.
So he found a way to bring his whole self to work.
And his initiative was met with enthusiasm.
Good for him.
And soon he was designing reports for everyone.
That's a great story.
It's a testament to the transformative power of aligning our work with our authentic selves.
Absolutely.
We've explored relationships, money, finding purpose, and self-awareness.
It seems like achieving happiness at work involves a multifaceted approach.
It does.
Before we delve further,
Okay,
let's pause here for a moment.
sounds good.
This seems like a natural break.
Okay,
Before we continue,
great idea.
our exploration of the Dalai Lama's wisdom.
We'll be back soon with even more insights into finding happiness at work.
Welcome back. Let's continue exploring the Dalai Lama's insights on cultivating happiness at work.
I'm excited to learn more.
So the Dalai Lama says our perceptions of ourselves can really hinder our ability to find satisfaction,
In what way?
especially those distorted by things like arrogance or low self-esteem.
I can see how arrogance might create obstacles.
Definitely, it can make us less receptive to criticism and even blind to our limitations.
I'm a key improve.
Exactly. He describes it as foolish stubbornness, clinging to an inflated self-image that prevents us from evolving.
Gotcha.
This often results in unrealistic expectations and inevitable disappointment.
I'd imagine low self-esteem presents its own hurdles.
Of course, it undermines our confidence and prevents us from recognizing our worth.
So how do we combat these distortions?
He suggests a two-pronged approach.
Lay on me.
First, reflect on the detrimental effects of these skewed perceptions.
Like really feel the consequences.
Exactly. Then shift your focus outward,
Right.
contemplate all that you don't know, and recognize the expertise of others.
Cultivating humility.
Precisely. It gives us a more balanced perspective.
That's a good reminder.
The Dalai Lama also talks about the influence our work has on our sense of identity.
Especially today, when our professions often define us.
He cautions against equating our entire identity with our job titles.
So don't wrap your whole self-worth into your career.
Right. Instead, nurture a multifaceted sense of self.
Okay, makes sense.
He suggests that certain interpretations of karma can actually exacerbate this unhealthy attachment.
Interesting.
He warns against a fatalistic view of karma, that our circumstances are predetermined.
I see.
This can make people feel helpless and prevent them from taking responsibility for their lives.
It takes away our agency.
Right. He observes that people react to retirement in different ways.
I can see that.
Some embrace new opportunities while others struggle with a loss of purpose.
Because their work was their whole life.
Exactly. This difference stems from how much they've intertwined their identity with their work.
So having hobbies and interests outside of work is important.
It provides a wider foundation.
I get it.
The Dalai Lama also advocates for aligning our work with our values.
Even if it means making less money.
He acknowledges that reality, but encourages us to seek work that is ethical and beneficial to others.
So work that gives us a sense of purpose.
Exactly. It aligns with the Buddhist concept of right livelihood.
Choosing a profession that avoids causing harm can be tough.
He uses the example of someone working in a weapons factory.
To provide for their family.
But they also recognize the potential harm their work could inflict.
It's a difficult dilemma.
There are no easy answers.
Right.
He emphasizes the need to weigh potential benefits against potential harms,
So make conscious choices.
guided by our own moral compass.
Our values.
Exactly right. Livelihood doesn't mean we all have to become monks or live in poverty.
Oh, I see.
It's about integrating ethical awareness into our career decisions.
Makes sense. I'm curious about cultural differences.
The Dalai Lama observes that Tibetans traditionally prioritize contentment and balance
Interesting.
over material wealth.
It's a different set of values.
Exactly. Now let's touch upon secular ethics in the workplace.
Like honesty, compassion, and integrity.
Precisely. Integrating these values fosters a harmonious and fulfilling environment.
Can this be beneficial for business?
He believes so. Operating with integrity builds trust with customers,
And investors.
leading to greater success.
When people trust a company, they're more likely to support it.
Applying secular ethics isn't always easy,
especially when faced with tough choices.
but he believes it leads to a more sustainable way of working.
So finding balance.
Between business and ethics,
What about leadership?
leaders who exemplify these values inspire their teams.
It sets the tone.
It creates a ripple effect, transforming the whole culture.
Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. One of the most difficult aspects is navigating conflict.
When interests clash.
Approach these situations with compassion.
Understanding the other person's perspective.
Avoid anger, resentment, or revenge.
Focus on finding solutions.
While you might not always get what you want, upholding ethical principles is key.
What about when things get really tough?
Sometimes the best course of action is to let go.
To move on.
Holding on to anger only perpetuates suffering.
Forgiveness.
Is a powerful tool for healing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean condoning bad behavior.
But releasing ourselves from the burden.
Choosing inner peace.
The Dalai Lama says applying secular ethics goes beyond our interactions with colleagues.
It includes our responsibility to the environment.
And to society as a whole.
He says businesses have a moral obligation to minimize environmental harm.
And contribute to the well-being of all.
It might seem daunting.
Especially for large corporations.
But even small acts of ethical awareness can make a difference.
Think globally, act locally.
By making conscious choices, speaking up against unethical practices, and supporting responsible businesses, we can create a more ethical and compassionate work environment.
It all comes back to interconnectedness.
Before we move on, the Dalai Lama poses a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Envision a world where work isn't separate from our spiritual lives.
Where our professions are extensions of our values?
What would that world look like?
That's a lot to unpack.
It's a vision of work that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
Definitely something to think about as we explore how to find happiness in our work. Welcome back to our deep dive into finding happiness at work, guided by the wisdom of the Dalai Lama. Throughout this exploration, I've been captivated by his approach to work. He always seems so content and engaged, radiating this aura of fulfillment.
He truly embodies this ideal, seamlessly integrating his work with his spiritual life.
When I initially asked him about his job, he humorously deflected, stating that he does nothing. His primary task is simply taking care of himself.
It's fascinating how he uses humor and self-deprecation when addressing personal inquiries.
But I sensed a deeper truth beneath those playful responses, a perspective worth uncovering. So I asked him directly, how do you view your work?
I'm on the edge of my seat. What did he say?
He emphasized his role as a Buddhist monk. His daily practices of study, prayer, and meditation constitute his fundamental profession.
That makes sense, given his lifelong dedication to these practices.
But he went on to explain that his other endeavors, leading the Tibetan people, sharing teachings, traveling the world, engaging with leaders, all emanate from this foundation.
So he doesn't see a separation between his work and his spiritual life.
They're interconnected and mutually reinforcing.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. His work becomes an extension of his values.
When asked about the most joyful moment in his work life, he didn't mention meeting dignitaries or the Nobel Peace Prize.
That's surprising what brought him the most happiness.
He talked about passing his geisha exams, the rigorous assessments monks undertake after years of study.
So the culmination of all that knowledge and discipline.
He described feeling immense relief and accomplishment.
Makes sense. Even for someone like the Dalai Lama, true happiness stems from mastery and the fulfillment of challenging endeavors.
Intrinsic rewards, that deep satisfaction from pushing ourselves and achieving goals.
Regardless of the specific task.
It's about finding meaning in what we do.
Absolutely. His ability to connect with people from all walks of life is amazing. He interacts with world leaders and everyday people with such ease.
His humility is remarkable. He doesn't let status inflate his ego.
Cutler tells a great story about this. He accompanied the Dalai Lama to a reception at the U.S. Capitol hosted by Senator Dianne Feinstein. The room was packed with influential politicians.
I can only imagine the atmosphere.
It was charged with ambition and posturing.
But when the Dalai Lama entered, the energy shifted. He exuded calm and joy, treating everyone with respect.
Embodying those secular ethics we discussed.
His presence dissolved the artificial barriers of status and power.
It allowed for genuine human connection.
Cutler observed that the closer people were to the Dalai Lama, the more relaxed and joyful they became.
It's like his happiness was contagious.
So let's revisit your earlier question. What would it look like to fully integrate our values and passions into our work lives, creating a seamless fusion of who we are and what we do?
It's a profound question, and the path is different for everyone.
It's not about finding a specific job or reaching a certain level of success. It's about cultivating a way of being, where our work expresses our core values, a source of fulfillment and positive contribution,
Finding that intersection where our skills and passions meet the needs of the world.
where our efforts not only sustain us but benefit others,
We might not all achieve the Dalai Lama's level of enlightenment.
but we can strive to bring that same awareness, compassion, and purpose to our own work.
Starting with small steps, challenging our assumptions, and exploring new possibilities.
If you're feeling inspired to create a more meaningful work life, consider this. Reflect on your values. What kind of work allows you to express yourself while making a positive impact? Then take those initial steps towards realizing that vision.
It's a journey that requires patience and perseverance.
Openness to both challenges and rewards.
Before we wrap up, let's recap some key takeaways.
All right, so we've learned that nurturing positive relationships at work contributes to happiness.
Don't get fixated on money, focus on inner contentment.
Embrace challenges as opportunities for growth and fulfillment.
Remember, flow comes from engagement and focus, not just the task itself.
Reframe work as a calling by connecting to a higher purpose.
Self-awareness and understanding your strengths are key for finding the right path.
Distorted self-perceptions like arrogance or low self-esteem can hold us back.
Don't solely define yourself by your job. Cultivate a balanced life.
Seek work that aligns with your values, even if it requires some financial sacrifices.
Choose work that is ethical, benefits others, and promotes meaning.
That's a great summary. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found these insights as inspiring and practical as we have. Until next time, keep exploring.